Good morning and welcome to Kunsang Payul Chilling. We're so glad to bring you a teaching by Jetsunma, Ahkon, Lhamo. This teaching was given a ways back in 1989. And it's about Guru Rinpoche's path for today. Vajrayana is what Guru Rinpoche taught. That's the path that we practice here at KBC. And it's his path for Kaliyuga, which is considered in Tibetan to be the degenerate time. And we are believed to be in that time. You can judge for yourself. So Vajrayana is the path for this time, for this place, and for us now. And we invite you to enjoy the teaching. So we will begin.
It's hard for Americans to practice in the same way as perhaps Tibetans or Asians who have had teachings about compassion and teachings about the eventuality of enlightenment from their birth, and therefore have faith that is completely free of doubt. I've seen the difference in the practice of many Asians. They may not practice because they're lazy, or they may not practice because they're too busy, or what have you. But they never do not practice because they have doubt. They've been taught from birth that the point of life is to make it a vehicle for enlightenment, and they really have that down, as well as I can see. And Americans don't really have that down. We think the point of living is to accumulate, and not necessarily mantra. We think the point of living is to live in a material world successfully. We have a lot of crazy misconstrued ideas about success, what it means. Even in terms of our own psychological success. We don't really understand that the only thing that's really important is achieving realization, because that is the ultimate cessation of suffering. So I've always felt that even while we adults practice as well as we can, and with as much faith as we can, I don't think that we have the fervent regard that perhaps the next generations will have if they are taught from children to really consider that life is a vehicle for loving, that life is a vehicle for kindness, that life is a vehicle for compassion, that life is a vehicle for the attainment of realization solely to benefit beings. If they're taught from a child to think of benefiting beings and to have that be the importance of their lives will be different than ours are, because we were not taught that. I remember I was taught to marry a rich man. It didn't work, but I was taught that. So I put a lot of energy into the little ones. And I think we should all do that. They're important, very much important. Hope of our society, I think. Anyway, our teaching for today is given thinking that soon we will be having our Guru Rinpoche retreat. And I think it starts Thursday night, doesn't it? Thursday night. And the reason why I decided to have this retreat was I just felt deeply moved to do so. I felt that we needed it. And I can't really explain that need in an analytical way. I can't tell you exactly why I felt that need was there, but it was kind of a gut feeling. I don't think there's ever a time where we don't need to practice Guru Rinpoche, or when there's ever a time that we don't need to go into retreat. But I think that this is an important time, and a time that this really needs to be done. We've had many teachings lately. Those of you that have been students here for a long time, and those of you that are new students or are occasional students or what have you. You may have had the opportunity to come and hear teachings several times. But you know, the thing about practicing the Buddha's teaching is that the hearing of the teaching does not really bring the empowerment. The hearing of the teaching does not really bring the result. And ultimately, it's the result that is important. Without the result, the hearing is utterly useless. I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again. My root guru at the head of this lineage, His Holiness Pema Noba Rinpoche, the holiness who is that child's favorite Buddha, once said to me that a person could receive empowerment, and in Tibetan, in the Vajrayana tradition, one of the aspects of empowerment was to receive the vase or body empowerment. And the vase empowerment is where one takes what is called a vase or a bumpa, and it's filled with nectar, and it is completely empowered and blessed. And somehow in the course of the empowerment, one receives it touched on the head, and then one drinks some of the nectar and applies it to the head also. In many, the habit is that many Americans, and also this is especially true of Asians, I think, will try to receive empowerment after empowerment and teaching after teaching, thinking that the collection of these teachings and the accumulation of many empowerments will somehow make us wise and strong and brave and possibly even rich if we can manage it. And yet, even though there is a blessing there, according to His Holiness, he says that one can receive empowerment after empowerment, even to the extent that one can be touched on the head until both the vase or the bumpa and one's head were literally flat. One could receive so many empowerments and with so much vigor, and it would do one absolutely no good if one did not practice. So, I've learned a lot from that and from other things that my teachers have said, and also from my own experience. From my own experience in my own practice, as well as my own experience watching others that take teachings from me and from other teachers. That if they do not practice, if they simply collect teachings and do not take the opportunity at every opportunity to practice deeply rather than casually, one does not really absorb the blessing of the teaching. Because teaching is not like an external application. It isn't something that we can't think of it as a thing or a mold that one superimposes on one's mind as though one's mind were a moldable thing like Jell-O and the teaching were a solid thing that molds the Jell-O. If we think of teaching that way, we think of it incorrectly. If we think of teaching that way, we think of it that way mostly because we do not understand the nature of our minds. We do not understand that our true inherent nature is the pristine primordial nature that is the same as Lord Buddha himself, that is the same as Guru Rinpoche himself. It is pristine, free of defilement, free of contrivance, free of any kind of impurity. It is luminous, that is to say, it is innately wakeful. And yet that wakefulness is like an objectless awareness, free of subject and object, and therefore free of the contrivances and the containers that one must create to contain such conceptualization. It is an awareness that is without such limitations. A luminosity that cannot be described with any kind of conceptualization, any kind of words. That is our nature, and we have that nature in potential form. Ultimately, we come to understand that the potential is as strong as the fruit. That is to say, the seed is the same as the fruit. And yet, we do not taste the fruit. And that's the difference. That we do not taste our nature. We do not taste our nature because we have a mistaken belief or a foundational kind of presupposition of self-nature as being inherently real. And in order to contain that contrivance, one externalizes all of one's experience. All experience appears to be external, even one's own feelings. In that, one's feelings come and go, and one survives them. One's experiences come and go, and one survives them. They are all experienced as externalized phenomena, however subtle, because of the basic schism in our perception, the division between the perception of self and other. It happens at every level of experience, even the most subtle. Certainly at the gross levels of experience. You can look at phenomena and see that. You don't need me to tell you that. You can see that it appears external. But even at the most subtle levels, one's own feelings, one's own thought, one's own vision, one's own hopes, one's own even meditative experiences are externalized, they are divided. I am having this experience. I am having this thought. They are divided. And while that schism exists, while that division continues, we do not taste our nature. Our nature remains ever present, ever luminous, ever wakeful, ever dynamic, ever real, ever the same, as full and as empty as it will ever be. But while we are dividing full from empty and making them different, we cannot experience that nature because that nature is suchness, it is the same. We experience instead this schism, this division. And so we do not taste that nature. Receiving teachings, if we receive them and consider them like external applications and hear them with this constant schism in our minds, if we hear these teachings and we have these teachings and we have this empowerment, if we function in that way, collecting these teachings in this way, they remain as kind of like externally applied applications, if we can think of such a thing. They don't really change anything, because you can't learn about that nature. It's useless to learn about that nature. Because if you learn about that nature and it still remains an externalized experience, the schism remains and the nature is not experienced. To know that nature, one must practice, and one must experience that nature to the depth. One must experience that nature in such a way that there is no schism, that the process of externalization ceases. And that process can only cease through one's practice. It is a strong, habitual tendency that we have experienced not only in one lifetime. People have the mistaken idea that we take on ego perception when we're 6 months old, or maybe a year old, or 3 years old, and we think, children are completely free of that when they're first born. Actually, that's not true. Children appear free of that when they're first born, because they aren't organized yet. But in fact, children, no matter what you do to them, will start running around yanking toys away from other children, yelling, "Mine, mine, mine." And they all do that. Some more than others. But all will naturally develop a sense of identity. And the reason why is because it is their karma to do so. By karma, I mean strong, accumulated, habitual tendency. It will come out in every child, even if they are alone. Even if you could, theoretically, I don't think anyone would ever want to do this, but if you could raise a child somehow alone, all by themselves, with no one else to argue with, they would still develop a sense of self. These habitual tendencies did not begin with this life, and unless we practice, they will not end with this life. They are the product of, as Lord Buddha teaches, aeons and aeons of cyclic rebirth. A process of rebirth that continues and will continue for aeons and aeons more unless we bring about the cause that is the cessation of this rebirth. And that cause is the realization, the full realization of the primordial wisdom state, what we call enlightenment, or what Lord Buddha called awakening. Upon realizing that state and therefore being free of this schism, which is so tied up with the process of externalization and ego identity, naturally one will view the nature. The view will be pure. It will not be a divided view. Naturally, it will occur. The mistake that we make in taking teachings is that we think that evolution is something that you must build. We think it is something that you must structure. We think it is something that isn't there, that somehow enlightenment isn't there already, and that we have to make it. And then we have it mixed up with ideas that are more like self-mastery. And in this path, that isn't what the Buddha is speaking of. The Buddha does not speak of self-mastery in that way. The Buddha speaks of awakening. The Buddha speaks of awakening to a nature that is unconstructed, beginningless, endless, unchanging, and completely and absolutely stable. Free of any kind of fluctuation, change, anything like that. It is simply awakening to that nature. So that one cannot collect one's enlightenment, one cannot construct it, one cannot, most assuredly, make it up. But instead, one can become awake. According to the Buddha's teachings, the five senses that we know and love and trust, and these are the five senses that we love to harp on when we say, well, I can only believe what I see for myself. According to the Buddha's teachings, these very five senses are actually extensions of ego function. And you think that's wild, you think that's a crazy idea, but you should examine the five senses for yourself, as well as you can using the five senses. Examining them for yourself, you can see that every perception that you have, hot, cold, stinky, fragrant, hard, soft, here, there, big, small, every single one, loud, noiseless, they all relate to self. Everything that you perceive, big to you is not the same as big to an ant. Small to you is not the same as small to a kitten. Hard to you is not the same as hard to a... what's something really hard? One of those southwestern lizards with hard plates on their bodies, or a turtle, land tortoise. Everything, all the perceptions like that are relative to self. And Lord Buddha teaches us, in fact, that these five senses are actually extensions of the belief in self. They are functions of the ego. So these things that we wait around to believe in, wait around to prove to us, can't. We have to rely on enlightened perception. We don't have enlightened perception yet. Are we in a catch-22 situation? Are we between a rock and a hard place? Can't believe the five senses because they are more than slightly diluted? And can't believe enlightened perception because we don't have it yet? Well, the great blessing that we have going for us that makes practice possible is that we have purely preserved and purely taught, purely given the teachings of Lord Buddha, who gave his perception from the enlightened perspective, who spoke from the mind of enlightenment, who displayed the miraculous compassion of enlightenment by giving us teachings on the nature of mind, teachings on the method to attain the awakening to that nature, and teachings on the result. So we have that going for us, and we should take advantage of it. Certainly greatly responsible for these teachings remaining firm and pure upon the earth and being conveyed in a pure manner according to pure lineage and pure method is Lord Buddha Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, whose image you see there. Particularly, he is responsible for the Vajrayana path, its development in Tibet. He is responsible, he and his consort Yeshe Tsogyo, for hiding, burying, and revealing, causing to have revealed later on teachings that now are the cycles of revelation that we use here and that are used in every single Vajrayana center that you can find anywhere in the world. And we rely greatly upon him because he is considered to be a supremely enlightened being. He is considered to be an incarnation of Lord Buddha Shakyamuni himself. He is considered to be the continuation of Lord Buddha's teaching, with teachings that are especially appropriately geared toward these times. Guru Rinpoche is considered to have, as I explained to the young people earlier, every enlightened quality of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. He is considered to have, to exhibit, to display all of the enlightened and miraculous activities of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all the enlightened beings of all the 10 directions. He has truly accomplished every Buddha and Bodhisattva, and what that really means in the deepest sense is that there is no quality or activity, there is no awakened state, there is no function, there is no quality of body, speech, and mind that he has not actualized within his own being. So that it's said, if we pray to Guru Rinpoche and do the practice that Guru Rinpoche has given us, we can surely achieve enlightenment. And particularly, we can achieve enlightenment quickly and specifically easily during this time, which is called Kaliyuga. This is a particular time. This is the age of Kaliyuga. It is called the age of, it's actually called the age of disintegration, or the age of contraction. At this time, karma is considered to ripen much more quickly. Karma is condensed. It's like taking 10 square feet of fabric and rumpling it up and having it really squished together. It's the same amount of fabric, but it's in a much smaller space. The age of Kaliyuga is like that. It's really true. If you listen to really old-timers, they'll tell you that things used to happen more slowly then. And it isn't really just about mechanization. It isn't really just about the development of the TV and the radio and those kinds of things. We think it's that, and that's maybe a display of that. But the real event is that we are going further and further into the age of Kaliyuga. It is a time of condensation. And this path, Vajrayana, is geared exactly for this time. When Guru Rinpoche gave the teachings, he gave the teachings also giving instruction that during the time of this great time of contraction, during this time of Kaliyuga, these teachings would be most useful. Specifically, he gave teachings that have the capability of ripening one's mind quickly. The tradition of preserving empowerment and giving empowerment from Lama to student to Lama to student in an unbroken lineage, traceable directly back to the revelation that Guru Rinpoche gave and the exacting way in which he hid and planted and then later revealed the revelation. This particular method of teaching is considered to be the most useful during this time. It has a quality of burning the candle at both ends. The methods that are employed aren't only the methods that are taught during the first turning of the wheel that Lord Buddha gave, but in fact they go much deeper. They are more profound, more complicated. Instead of simply, as is taught in the first turning of the wheel, doing no harm, practicing good conduct, good method, good attitude, good qualities, practicing meditation in a proper way, rather than just these passive modes, or even the continuation of teaching in the Mahayana vehicle, which is that we should practice extreme kindness and accumulate merit in that way. In the Vajrayana vehicle, one does all of these things. One practices proper conduct, proper attitude, proper method, proper discipline, proper meditation. One also practices supreme kindness. That is to say, one takes on the intention to liberate other sentient beings from the causes of suffering, achieving realization for their sake, promising to go on, not only in this lifetime, but after achieving realization, to continue to return again and again and again in order to benefit beings, to literally attain realization for their sake, because there are many of them and only one of us. And then going beyond that to practice the very profound generation and completion stage teachings in which one actually engages in sadhana practice or puja practice, generating oneself as the deity, utilizing the astonishingly potent mantra, which is actually the condensation of the qualities, activities, and mind state of the particular Buddha associated with. And ultimately, the qualities, activities, and mind state of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are condensed within each mantra. The qualities of body, speech, and mind. Using that mantra, using visualization, exacting and specific visualization, learning the skill of generating oneself as the deity and purifying one's perception through the generation of the mandala. This pure view. Generating oneself in that way. Really relying not only on one's ability to practice, but relying also on the potency of the empowerment that one must have in order to be authorized to practice. That is given to us directly from the mind of Guru Rinpoche. Relying on that blessing to achieve results. In this time, when karma is condensed, when phenomena is different due to that condensation, when result is different due to that condensation. At this time, this practice will work, and work quickly. The methods that are used in the first turning of the wheel can take aeons of practice. Hard to think of it, isn't it? Aeons of practice. The methods that are taught in the second turning of the wheel can take many lifetimes of practice. Many lifetimes of practice. The methods that are employed in the third turning of the wheel and in the Vajrayana vehicle, these methods can, if one practices sincerely and well, take one lifetime, or they can take 3, or they can take 7. But surely if one practices this path, one will achieve realization quickly. And of all the paths that are available upon the earth, this is the most direct route. One way of learning how to value such an opportunity is to understand that one can accomplish many spiritual goals. One can be a spiritual person. That sounds like a great goal, but believe me, it's not that great a goal. It's like putting on your mommy's clothes and wearing them around. It's not the same. One can attain arhathood. One can attain some levels of realization in which perhaps one's mind is at peace or calm, or develops an attitude of spaciousness. One can develop different levels of realization, even up to something that we might call cosmic consciousness, the realization of the non-duality of all phenomena. But Lord Buddha himself walked away from that level of realization and went aside by himself, knowing there was something else, and found that one can actually awaken to the primordial wisdom nature without obstacle, without inhibition, fully and completely. And that is the state of supreme awakening. This state of supreme awakening is the ultimate refuge. It is the ultimate goal. And it is this state of supreme awakening that one considers Guru Rinpoche as an embodiment of. When we do prostration to the teacher as a representation of that and as a representation of Guru Rinpoche, or when we do prostration to Guru Rinpoche in a statue form or in our mind's eye, we don't really prostrate to a statue or to a mental picture. Neither do we prostrate to the person who is the teacher, but we prostrate to the ultimate source of refuge, to the ultimate blessing, which is the supremely awakened nature that is the true and only source of refuge. Because as Lord Buddha taught, that and that alone, the awakening to that, is the cessation of all suffering. And is also the capability of bringing about the cessation of all suffering for all sentient beings. No one can bring about the cessation of suffering if they have not brought about and understood that cessation within themselves. So we should evaluate what the point of practice is and to what extent we should practice. And then we should determine for ourselves what kind of practice we will do, whether it's simply a spiritual practice or whether we are certain that it will produce the desired results. And we can only be certain when we see the source. If we see that the source is a supremely enlightened reality, and that the method is through supremely enlightened intention, and that the path is preserved purely, then that seems like a safe bet. That is the right choice. When we practice Guru Rinpoche, we are practicing in a condensed form all conceivable blessing that he revealed from his mind stream. He revealed many cycles of revelation. He hid them and they were revealed in miraculous ways. Most of you know the story, but I love to tell the story, so I'll tell it again about how this all happens. As he was getting ready to depart the land, he and Guru Yeshe Tsogyal, his consort, brought about from their enlightened capability many cycles of revelation, complete cycles of revelation, from preliminary practice, complete with commentary, teaching, empowerment, transmission, all the way to generation and completion stage teachings, all the way to Dzogchen level. Each cycle was complete. And they were hid in amazing places. They were hidden in the mind streams of their disciples. And it was written down and predicted when the disciples would reappear, under exactly what circumstances, and at what point they would reveal the teaching. Some of them were hidden in rocks, and it was revealed at what point which terton would draw them forth. Some of them were revealed in water, were hidden in water rather, and some of them were hidden in the air. And at each point it was written down under what circumstances the teaching would be revealed. Lo and behold, they were always revealed properly under the proper circumstances. Generally, it was the predictions could not be understood until the circumstances came about. That the predictions, in other words, the predictions could not be faked. They were written in such a way that one could only recognize the signs when the signs appeared, in many cases. And at that time, the tertons, or treasure revealers, would reveal the teachings. And often they would simply have a series of dreams, and then at some point, not in the dream state, or sometimes, in many different states, many different circumstances, would simply begin to write down the cycles of revelation. Often the treasure revealers, the ones that were revealing the cycles of teaching, weren't even literate. And yet they wrote down without flaw complete cycles of teaching, wrote them down perfectly. They needed no correction. Then others would have a dream to go to a certain cave, and in a certain cave would be a certain holding thing or receptacle. And in that object would be a certain cycle of revelation, and they would find the books already there. Or others would would have a dream or would have a vision to gather together certain people and then go to a lake. And then suddenly they would, through prayer and through doing puja, would draw the cycle of revelation out from the lake. Or they would draw something that was partially written in Dakini handwriting, it's called, or Dakini writing. And from that they were able to translate and lay out the whole cycle of revelation without flaw. There were many different ways in which these things were revealed, but they were all quite remarkable. They were not ordinary. People didn't sit down and write these things. It's not like composing a song for the top 40, you see. They were revealed in these miraculous ways. And so we have these treasures to rely on at a time when it is possible to achieve results simply because this is the right time and these are the right treasures for these results to appear. Simply by relying on the inconceivable blessing of the enlightened intention and the miraculous compassion of Guru Rinpoche. The inconceivable blessing of Guru Rinpoche. To rely on such a blessing as that, it's beyond anything we can understand. And we have that preserved in pure form. We practice exactly as it is given. And the results are sure. Not only because they are given by Guru Rinpoche can we judge that, but we can also judge that because these teachings have been taught for hundreds of years and they have brought about so many absolutely certain signs of supreme realization in the beings that have practiced them. They have brought about the rainbow body. They have brought about miraculous relics appearing at the time of death, miraculous signs. They have brought about signs that cannot be confused with other kinds of activity. They have already brought the results, and they are potent enough to bring them again. So for that reason, when we think of Guru Rinpoche, we think of relying on him completely, and that's the true meaning of devotion. In this path, devotion is very important. One cannot practice this path purely without devotion. Truly, and I say this to you without any other reason other than so that you will know. Consider oneself practitioner of the Vajrayana path. And as far as the Vajrayana path goes, one cannot consider oneself a Buddhist without devotion, and that devotion means the absolute reliance on the precious Guru. Guru Rinpoche, and since he himself said, I will appear as your root teacher, those teachers then that distribute the path purely. This absolute reliance is like nectar, it's like hope. And it's not like feelings you would have in any other way, or even feelings you would have in any other time. It's potent in ways that we can hardly understand potency. And in the beginning it's not natural, because we haven't been brought up that way. And we are taught to cultivate it. But the practice associated with Guru Rinpoche, and the practice that we will do on this retreat, is essentially then to be considered the practice of all of the potency that is available in this path at this time, when the nectar of that potency is so desperately longed for and needed. At this time, we will do many repetitions of the Vajraguru mantra and many repetitions of the 7-line prayer, which is an extraordinary prayer and considered the king of prayers, the prayer to Guru Rinpoche. It is considered to have, if one understands the 3 levels of meaning, of which the translation is only the most incredibly superficial, the 3 levels of meaning indicate that that prayer has within it all the condensed essence of enlightenment itself, and all the means by which to purify the winds, channels, and fluids. To bring about supreme enlightenment. This kind of practice, and many repetitions of that practice, will bring about change. There is no doubt. If done with faith and fervent regard, as the saying goes. And most especially, if done solely to benefit beings. You should think about the reason why we're here. There are many places that we could have built a temple. We could have made a prayer center. There are many places that one can hold a prayer vigil. But here we are close to the capital of this nation, that at this moment in time is a nation that has impact more than any other upon the world. Right or wrong, impact more than any other. I would like that impact to be a good one. And I think that the way to do that is to bring about a change in the collective karma of this nation. The reason for holding this prayer vigil, this 24-hour day prayer vigil that we keep and have kept for 4 years and will keep for an infinite number of years, is to bring about change. And that change comes about by changing the karma of this nation, by changing the karma of this area, by changing the karma that is here, and our own karma as well. And for this to be done near the capital of this nation is very auspicious. And to do something like a Guru Rinpoche retreat with so many accumulations of mantra, again near the capital of this nation, I think is a tremendous gift that we can all participate in. the practice of Guru Rinpoche, no matter where we do it, whether it's here, near the capital of this nation, or wherever we happen to be, is most profound at this time when that kind of practice is needed. So I hope and pray that you will join us for the retreat, and even when the retreat is over, I hope and pray that you will continue to practice. I hope that you that have received these teachings and perhaps have never received teachings from me or any other Buddhist teacher before will continue and examine this and see if it's for you. And I hope also that those of you that receive teachings occasionally and maybe casually will perhaps deepen your practice. If you do any of these things, even if you only say the 7-line prayer 10 times, 100 times, then this talk will have been worth it. Otherwise, as my root guru said, we could bang you on the top of the head with it until I'm tired and you're tired, and it won't do much good. So I hope that you practice for your sake and for the sake of the world.
Thank you very much for taking the time and sharing this teaching with us and being here. And I hope that it was beneficial for you. We do show these teachings of Jetsunmas twice a week, usually, once on Wednesday evenings at 7:30, and again on Sunday mornings at 11, where you are now, both on YouTube. This coming Wednesday, we will have another teaching for you. And we expect the following Sunday, the 16th, that you will be seeing something different than a teaching by Jetsunma. We are planning to have, weather permitting, a Riwo Sangcho, which is a smoke offering outside in front of the new Guru Rinpoche statue, and with Khenpo Pem there, talking about Guru Rinpoche and answering questions for people there. If you're in the area, it is a live event, so you can come outside, bring your own chair and mask, and join in. If you're not in the area, we will put it up on YouTube, since this is where you're expecting to see something on Sunday mornings at 11. So it's the perfect place. So it will be there. Let's see. In addition, we have meditation on Saturdays and Sunday mornings at 10, and led by one of our nuns. And that's also a good time to come and meditate. We have Medicine Buddha on Facebook Live every evening at 7:30. And that's every evening, I mean, weekends included. Very short practice. It's mostly in English. Jetsunma gave this practice the condensation of a longer Medicine Buddha practice for basically for everyone during this time of COVID and pandemics and a lot of death and illness and around the world, where people are struggling with that. And it's a place where people can come and offer their prayers and their for loved ones, and joining other people for their loved ones. So it's join anytime you like. Just open up Facebook. We also have a soak offering every day on Zoom. Monday through Fridays, generally at 5:30, Saturdays at noon, Sundays at 2 p.m. And that there's a calendar of those that's up on our website, tara.org. You can check out the calendar, and you can go to under Meditate, Pray, Study, you'll find webcasts and calendars, and you can click on that, and it'll give you what we're showing and where it is and how to get there. And you can also download a copy of the practice that we're doing, so you can participate in the event. We hope that's helpful for you, and we hope you do join us as often as you can. Let's see, in addition, if you want to make an offering to Jetsunma, you can definitely do so through her PayPal account. It is jetsumagift@gmail.com, and that's in your chat right now. So you can copy that down. It does help strengthen your connection. And oh, by the way, her birthday is coming up. So, it's a great time of the year to do that. So, thank you for watching again. If you're in the area, we really invite you to come to visit the outside temple, which is open dawn to dusk every day. And a lot of places that you can walk, that you can meditate, that you can just find peace and harmony, and a lot of things to do. There are gardens, there's some wonderful animals that just love being petted and loved up, some unusual animals you don't see generally in the petting zoos, but a couple pigs and some geese and some chickens of all types, beautiful colors, chickens like I've never seen. Anyway, you can enjoy all of them, and know that they really appreciate your love and will give it back in tenfold, like most animals. Let's see. Invitations have been issued. You are welcome to come. We hope the inside will be open soon. We don't know. We're watching the area and watching the hospitalizations and all of that kind of stuff to make sure that we keep everyone safe. And that's our goal. We want to be open as soon as we can, but we want everyone safe. So please come, be safe, come outside, enjoy it. And we'll see you next time online. Thank you so much. If you have any questions at all and you want to contact us, you can just email kpc@tara.org, and you will find us. Thanks again.